Hi and good afternoon. Premier African Minerals, in snapshot, is AIM listed. We're a exploration and development company concerned with advancing a number of our projects as rapidly as possible to a point of production, and at the same time with various other projects, explorations, and other activities that we've had. We are concerned as well that we develop through other alternative transactions, and there was one recently, access to funds to continue to support our operations without necessarily having to go back and ask shareholders to contribute and suffer dilution. I'm going to focus today really on three things because of fairly limited time. The first is our late stage and advanced project, which is concerned with tungsten in Zimbabwe. I'm going to discuss the political situation and country risk and so on relative to Zimbabwe, which I think is topical and needs to be looked at. And then I'm going to try and give us a snapshot of why Premier African Minerals today represents, and I believe, an exceptional investment opportunity. Just very briefly, the company, as I said to you, is AIM listed. I've set out our strategy, key projects. We have a couple in Zimbabwe. We have some in Togo as well. That's quite an interesting little graph, and I think we should have a look at the share price. And in relation to some of the other discussion that's happened before, that's over the last nearly a year now. That dip was at a point in time when it was anticipated that I was going to need to come back to the market to raise money. We didn't. We concluded a corporate transaction at the time, which has left Premier well funded. In terms of funding, are still being paid out for the transaction that we concluded, and we have funds coming in on Monday, again in November and again in January, which is carrying us quite comfortably at this point. Our board, it's on our website. This can be downloaded and it's available, so not wanting to go through it to too great an extent, let me just mention briefly that I've strongly increased our operational capability quite strongly recently. And two of those appointments are very significant. Werner Swanepoel, who comes in as a very experienced mining engineer to build the mine so that we have a client team that can deal with it. Wolfgang is one of the more competent geologists, exploration geologists I've seen for a while. The RHA Tungsten Project, located in the northwest corner of Zimbabwe, in the Kamativi Tin Belt area. I think Kamativi is fairly well known. Highlights of the project are, if we have a look at that resource, now this is exploration that we conducted, measured and indicated 1.55 million tons at a composite grade of 7.97 kg per ton, WO3. That's high in terms of comparables in the tungsten industry, and I'll come back on that one. The inferred, and when we look a little further at the geological model, I think you'll understand that we've probably looked at 20% maybe of this deposit. There is a huge upside on it. This was an historic mine. It was originally mined part open cast and part through significant underground development. So we have the knowledge of all the historic development, all the historic mining. It was held by, amongst others, Falconbridge at one point in time. We have all the data. We conducted last year in September a preliminary study. We produced a financial model, and we were comfortable at that time with significant economics. Basically, production rate 192,000 tons per annum was the run of mine at that time, and that study in December, we'll come to some figures on that, and I can show you where we are. In summary, high-grade resource, historic mining record, extensively mined, robust economics. And those economics, there you got them there. That goes back to September last year, and that was based on a resource at the time of just over 1 million tons, not on the upgraded resource that we now have. At that point in time, we were talking about a capex to build a new mine, 13.4 million. That rate of return is phenomenal, and that was the valuation at that point in time. It's interesting that RHA was never decommissioned. It is effectively an operating mine. Doesn't change the fact that we are conscious of compliance in whatever respect we have to be. We are going through the full ESIA process and whatever else is necessary. In the Zimbabwe environment, we are a fully indigenized company. The structure of the company basically is that a local Zimbabwean company has a shareholders agreement with the National Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Fund in Zimbabwe. Under the shareholders agreement, we are the operators. We have marketing rights to the product. And most significantly, the local Zimbabwean company is responsible for the development of the mine. Now, any debt that is incurred by the local Zimbabwean company, such as debt that we may put into that company or that is secured from wherever, is the responsibility of the local company. It is not the responsibility of the individual shareholders. Moving on from that, location, I think I mentioned, northwest corner of Zimbabwe, very close to Victoria Falls. Beautiful area, borders almost onto the Wangi Game Reserve. Good existing infrastructure. We have power grid, as it says there, 300 kVA available immediately for startup. Road access is reasonable. We have our own water storage dam on site, used primarily by wildlife in the area at the moment, but soon to be used by us. We have a very good relationship with the community, and we're welcomed in the area. Our achievements in summary over the last year or two: we did our first drilling campaign going back to January 2013, described our first resource in March 2013, technical report in September 2013. You saw the valuations just now on that. We did additional drilling at the end of last year, issued a new resource statement in May this year, which updated, and that gave us the 1.55 million tons measured and indicated. And we, subsequent to that, and this goes back to some of the earlier discussion on mining companies and the issues that mining companies have had and development companies, we sat down and we reviewed the strategy that we had followed up to that point. And historically, we had intended to build a new mine. You saw the capex of 13.4 to go and do a completely new development on a larger scale. We sat down and reviewed what we had. And what we had is a lot of the infrastructure, as you've seen it, the road access, the dam, the electricity on site, a huge amount of data going back to the history of this mine, which had been mined since 1931, actually, was when it was first mined. A lot of data from the Falcon Bridge era, and major underground development. The mine is accessible. There's a 130-meter dual compartment competent shaft. It needs to be equipped, but it's there. There are multiple adits. You can walk into the mine. The mineralization is visible. And linked to all of that, underground, there is a non-compliant, historically quite well described at that time reserve of 100,000 tons of developed ore, which is accessible to us. So we went through the strategic review, and we took the decision that what we would do is try and get this mine into production as quickly as possible. Having done that, we set about a number of studies, and there are some of them down the bottom there. It was necessary to consider various trade-off studies in regard to various different aspects of it. We have tailings. You saw a photograph of the tailings on the cover sheet. There's approximately 60,000 tons of tailings that are grading at just under 0.3%. Now that's a significant resource compared to a lot of other people in tungsten today. We have the developed underground historic reserve, and then we have our own developed resource, or the resource that we've now described from the work that we did. And we took a decision that we would phase this in over that. I'm going to skip past that. It's available. That's the historic numbers. I just want to come onto this slide here, and just while I'm talking this through, we took the decision that we would now phase in production as best we could out of available cash flow to avoid having to come back to the market and to try and avoid any of the delaying and other hindering factors there may be. Now, this particular slide here, and this is per kind favor of Northland's Capital, sitting over there is RHA. And this is a grade scale. We are as far to the right virtually as we can get from a grade perspective. We are a long way from fully developed in terms of the resources that we have. This next slide will give you an idea of OPEX and CAPEX. We're way over to the left. And that's a factor of grade, and it's a factor of existing development that we have within RHA. Regional geological setting, I'm going to skip through it. It's northwest corner. We have modeled this, and worth noting here is that the resource that we described, this 2A, 2B, and load 1, that, other than a small section of load 2B, did not constitute any part of the historic mining. In fact, the load 1 element we discovered through our own drilling. So this is completely over and above whatever extensions there are in this mine from the historically developed work. Visible wolframite. Highest assays that we saw coming out of our core ran at 35.9%. That was, we check assayed it and it came back at 36.1. The main product that we have is the iron-rich wolframite, the ferbrite. There's very little scheelite. It's a more desirable product, probably easier to work with as well. Continue with the geological model. There you can see the load 1 and 2 complex where we've described the resource. The historic mining all sits in this area here and is open at depth and open on strike. So what we're going into is the historic mined areas to reopen. That's an aerial view of it. Historic open pit mining on top. The underground development is below. That's our own water source and dam, our own camps, villages, et cetera, that sits there. I said to you that we were busy with a number of implementation and trade-off studies, and just to give you an idea of the appointments and where we are. The geological modelling of the old resource being done by CAE Data Mine, I think that's just about finished. Metallurgical test program is completed. We announced the results on Wednesday this week, and we have some very good results. It's very competent material. It's highly saleable, and those of the off-takers who we're in conversations with are very comfortable with what we have. Process plant design, I've received the process plant design. It's also published. I have quotations on it, received yesterday. Mine design for old mine stage, completed December, but we're implementing as we go. Tailing storage facility, completed by December. Infrastructure and support facilities we're busy with. Early works, a lot of it's undergo at the moment, and you can see who we've appointed in the various different areas there. That's the material that we produced. And that comes out of, that hasn't even been milled. It's gone through a DMS and jig process. You can see where it's sitting at. That's sitting at 62.7% WO3, and it's on a recovery of between 80 and 85%. We're comfortable that in real life we'll get to 85% recovery on that. Flow sheet. conceptual, the actual process plant, summary of where we are in terms of our development, concept approval done, trade-off studies most finished, internal technical reports just about there, topographic surveys done, you saw a photograph from it, ESIA in progress at the moment, network finished, old mine resource goes back to the design of it, the modelling of it, just about finished at the moment. Why tungsten? I'm not going to go into detail on this. It's available and we can look at it because I've just about run out of time. And you can visit the mine if you like. And while that's running, that's walking straight into an adit. I just want to go back to Zimbabwe itself and say that Zimbabwe as a country has some huge advantages and benefits to us. Firstly, the education and skills that are available to us in Zimbabwe are on a par with or better than just about anywhere else in Africa I have worked. The relationships that we have and the way in which we are welcomed and that we are able to talk to and deal with people is exemplary. We have come under no extraneous, strange demands, no pressures, no issues at all of a political nature. We have a very good relationship with the Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Fund, and at least we have an environment that we understand to be, at this stage, consistent. We know where we are in Zimbabwe. We know what the requirements are of the government. We have complied with them. We are not faced with uncertainties in terms of that aspect of our operations. And I'm sorry, I've overrun. I could carry on talking for a long time, and I'm happy to take any questions if you want. And I'm into tea as well. So really, I'm sorry I've had to rush through it, but thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.